Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Dr. Velasquez, Health Officer for Spokane County, and today I'm joined by Sean Jones from the Alzheimer Association. Thank you for coming here today.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. It's a very important topic. It's something that I will have to say probably most of us know someone, know some family, have a colleague, have a friend that has someone in their family that has been impacted by this disease, which is very, very, very frequent, although sometimes we don't hear about it as much as we hear about other diseases. So thank you for coming here today. And
Absolutely.
I guess since I started with that leeway, how about we do hear, and rightfully so, a lot about cardiovascular disease, diabetes, diseases that impact the community.
Mm-hmm.
And we usually hear about the significant impact they have from a financial perspective and the impact on the families. But according to all of the numbers, Alzheimer's disease is actually economically more impactful than either one of those two, but we don't hear much about it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I think a lot of it is attached to, there's still quite a stigma attached to the term Alzheimer's. And examples I use is I often will go to health resource fairs, and I'll have a Alzheimer's Association table set up, and it's interesting because, people will literally do anything to avoid my table. It's like...
So it's not you?
I took it personally at first.
Okay.
It could be. I should drill down on that. But they'll come out of their way to come up to the table and say, I don't need you guys, I'm good. Some people will circle the table, not make eye contact. So there's still a stigma that's really, really attached. And I think relative to some other issues, I think one of the things that I hear from people consistently is because there's not a current cure for Alzheimer's,
Right.
They're like, why would I even want to know? What would be the benefit of me getting it actually like early detection? And I think that it's not normalized as a conversation topic. So I think families are still uncomfortable talking about it, communities. So what we're trying to do is get families, communities, get everybody normalized to having the discussion about Alzheimer's and dementia. In my mind, it's a little bit like where breast cancer used to be. Breast cancer used to be not necessarily talked about as openly as it is now, and now everybody's aware of it. Everybody talks about it, early detection. So we're just wanting to get to the point where everybody's comfortable and open talking about Alzheimer's because it's a super important topic.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and I agree with you. I think it's a matter of normalizing the conversation. Like for having hypertension, we all talk about it. Oh yeah, my blood pressure is doing okay, yay.
Right.
But we're a little bit more tentative about talking about quote unquote dementia and things along those lines. The interesting thing is that it's very common. Depending on whose article you read, is 1 out of every 9 or 10 people over the age of 65. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the economic impact, which is not just the care of the patient, is actually the lost productivity. The caregivers spend about 70% of their time with the patients, and most of them are family. So it's actually twice as much as cardiovascular disease or diabetes.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm glad you brought that up. But I mentioned caregivers. Let's talk a little bit about the caregivers,
Sure.
because we do know that caregivers, whether it's family or others, play a significant role in the care of these patients. Tell us a little bit about challenges that caregivers go through.
Yeah, and to circle back a little bit to what you said, so in Washington over the age of 65, about 10% of those individuals have been diagnosed with some form of dementia.
Okay.
And so when we start talking about caregivers, there's about 7 million Americans currently diagnosed with Alzheimer's, about 11 million unpaid caregivers that take care of those individuals, right? So the majority of the caregiving, the onus of that particular, the caregiving piece, typically always falls to family members or close friends. They're not paid. They oftentimes haven't been really trained on how to be a caregiver. They don't know what resources and supports are out there. So it's a massive stress level that really happens when somebody's taking care of a loved one with Alzheimer's or dementia. So what we've tried to do as an association is we want to make just as much of an emphasis on how can we figure out ways to support caregivers, right? Because if the caregivers aren't able to be at their best, then they're not going to be able to really care properly or give the right care for their loved one with Alzheimer's or dementia. So we want to emphasize as much as we can for the care receiver, the individual with the diagnosis, but then we also want to focus on the caregiver. Some of the things that we do offer as an association, we have a ton of caregiver support groups, which are amazing because oftentimes the caregiver, they need to hear from somebody with a similar lived experience, right? And so hearing from another caregiver in a support group is utterly amazing. The other thing that we don't really understand as a community is a lot of these caregivers are doing it totally alone, right? So a lot of people think like entire families and communities are helping. Oftentimes it's just that caregiver alone. It's 24/7. It's a really, really difficult position they're in. So we want to make sure they understand that there are supports and resources out there that are available. And just to clarify up front, so we're a nonprofit. Anything we provide the community, it's totally free, right? So we're trying to make sure everybody has equal access to the supports and services that we offer. So caregiver stress is, it's a real deal. It's a real deal for sure, and it's scary. So we want to provide as much support as we can for caregivers in that journey.
Wonderful, and I know that we've been showing on the other screen some facts, figure, and information. I want to encourage everybody to go to your website and take a look. We do know that highly impactful diseases, chronic illness, tend to have different impact in different segments of the community. What do we see in Alzheimer's disease?
Yeah, so statistics will bear out that the diagnostic information for Alzheimer's, about 70% that get diagnosed with Alzheimer's are women.
Okay.
Black Americans are twice as likely to get Alzheimer's. Hispanic Americans are 1.5 times as likely. And I think one of the things that's challenging is some of these underrepresented communities, those numbers are even without a lot of people having access to getting diagnosed or getting correct, accurate, up-to-date information on Alzheimer's and dementia. So again, that's one of the things that we've really focused on too, is we want to make sure that Spokane has access to all this information, but we also do a bunch of community outreach to rural communities throughout Eastern Washington. And again, the Alzheimer's Association is nationwide, right? And so there's not a piece of the United States that isn't covered by the Alzheimer's Association, that there isn't some sort of imprint in that community. But we want to make sure that rural and underrepresented populations, that they have access to the information, especially if they're the ones at a higher likelihood to get Alzheimer's. It's even more important that they get the information. And so that's in a lot of our outreach strategies.
Got it. So we'll talk a little bit about, or maybe a lot about, what the organization can do. So what can we as a workplace or schools or other entities can do to have a more family-friendly or accessible environment, or an environment that supports either the individuals or their caregivers? Yeah,
so the Alzheimer's Association, we work really closely with aging and long-term care of Eastern Washington. And then there's also, they have a Dementia Friends program. And actually a new thing that's just been rolled out is businesses, they can get certified as a dementia-friendly business, where you make sure that kind of the layout of the business, that they're offering a space that would, if somebody walked in off the street with Alzheimer's or dementia, would they be able to be properly serviced and navigated for whatever the various business is. So we're talking about credit unions, any business that a senior might be accessing, and then we provide some support and trainings for their staff to make sure that they can understand maybe warning signs for Alzheimer's. How can I communicate with somebody that has Alzheimer's? So I think we're really trying to think kind of outside the box and access businesses that, okay, who's going to interact a lot with seniors, right? And so a lot of people, number one, they don't understand what Alzheimer's is, And they certainly don't understand, well, if I was going to interact with somebody that had Alzheimer's, how should I talk to that person? What would the communication look like? So we're trying to provide all that side of support for businesses. Another thing that's been a huge focus for the Alzheimer's Association is we're trying to talk to more college-aged and younger crowds with an emphasis on brain health and like risk prevention, right? So it's different if you're talking to a little bit of an older group. You might want to talk about specific warning signs for Alzheimer's or how to understand Alzheimer's and dementia. But for a younger crowd, it's like, hey, these are the 10 healthy habits that you can really focus on to make sure your brain is healthy, right? So you're trying to give them tools, and they can leave that presentation feeling like, okay, there's some things that I actually can impact, that I have control of, that I can focus on. So we're trying to get more presentations, and I've done some presentations like for Washington State University med students, nursing students, UW med students. So we got UW and Washington State, so I mean, people don't get crazy. We're doing both schools, so it's all good. But we're just...
Here you have to say GUUW Health Regional Partnership.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just kidding.
I've already offended multiple people. It's all good.
It's all good.
But yeah, so we're just trying to get, and I think if you can get somebody young, super passionate about Alzheimer's, right, then you have an advocate and potential volunteer for life that will be really ingrained in what we're doing as an association. So those are some of the things we're trying to do here locally.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned some of the prevention or healthy habits for your brain, and that you have engaged with our future providers, because I think it's important for them to go into practice with some background. Let's talk a little bit about the average community member. What can an average community member do to promote a dementia-friendly environment or be helpful in any way, shape, or fashion? What would you suggest to people?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I would suggest for them, number one, always reach out, and our website's a great resource, right? So if you go to alz.org, it's going to list all of the current research, what are the current medications, because, I mean, just since 2019, we've had 3 brand new drugs that will help slow the progression. So, I mean, there's been massive medical breakthroughs. You can now determine if you have Alzheimer's through a blood test. That's brand new as well. So, I mean, we're really kind of on the cusp of some big major medical breakthroughs. The other thing is you can go on the website, you can see, okay, where are the caregiver support groups? We also do memory cafes. Memory cafes, that's where the caregiver, care receiver, they go together. So we create a social, interactive opportunity for them. They're awesome. Oftentimes when that person gets the diagnosis, they become really socially isolated. So we're trying to create a place where they can feel comfortable and confident to access. And I think the other thing that people can do, so I wanted to mention Jordan Hunter. She's in the Alzheimer's Association office with me. So she's on the development side. So she does our annual walk. She does all of our fundraising. We're the largest global funder of Alzheimer's research. And so, I mean, we put billions of dollars into research. And so we have an annual walk to end Alzheimer's. It's normally early October. But I would say if you're interested in wanting to know how to offer anything on the fundraising side, contact Jordan. What I do is I make sure we have enough volunteers to facilitate our support groups, our memory cafes. The more people we have volunteering, the more services we can offer the community. And we would love to get more services offered more rurally, but we can only do that with as many volunteers as we have.
That's all great information. Actually, folks, I hope you've been paying attention, because we talked a lot about the whole continuum, and more importantly, not just the whole continuum, but the fact that there's hope. There's a lot of research over the last few years, and if you take any other disease, like when I started practicing more than 3 years ago, and less than 100, my leukemia patients had a mortality of 95% in 18 months. Now it's chronic illness that can be treated. And I think in Alzheimer's, as well as other diseases, the breakthroughs are incrementally improving like every other day. So I think there's a lot of hope there.
One quickly, I just wanted to add, typically this is the last thing I typically chat about. And if people only leave understanding one thing, I would say go to our website. We have a 24/7 helpline. So I used to work with caregivers one-on-one,
Okay.
and this helpline, again, totally free, and it's not just a generic helpline. I mean, it's staffed by clinicians, social workers, and so I mean, I would have caregivers that would be the middle of the night, breaking point, and they could call this number, they could talk to therapist or counselor. And I mean, it was literally a life-saving service. You can also talk to a dementia resources navigator and get a free kind of consultation. They'll plug you in then to supports that are offered here locally. So if people are ever feeling alone, overwhelmed, that just start with that 24/7 helpline, because it is an actual lifeline for people, and they'll probably find, at least they'll get an answer on where to go next. So it's an amazing service, and I just want people to know they can access it at any time, find it on our website.
That's a great place to end today's presentation, because everybody will remember the last thing you said.
There you go.
And that's always good. So I want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you to Sean, and thank you to the Alzheimer Association.
Absolutely.
I know that they do an amazing job around the country. And for everyone, remember, knowledge and awareness are two powerful tools against pretty much almost any disease. So the more that we all know, the better off we're all going to be.
Absolutely.
So I will encourage everyone to learn a little bit. And with that, we're going to say thank you again. Thank you for joining us
Absolutely.
today.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
We'll see
it.
everybody next week. Have a great day.